What's up, everybody? My name is Tucker. In today's video, we're going to be talking about whether or not the Sixers are better off without Ben Simmons. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like rating on it. Check out my socials at the bottom of the screen as well. And let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so this conversation was a bit of an inevitable one once it became clear that the Sixers were still going to have a good record, at least to begin the season. They are, as of the recording of this video, still one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. And this is despite the fact that Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, guys like that have been missing games. They've still managed to be not on the same level that they've been in the past, specifically defensively, which we'll get to a little bit later, but strictly from a record standpoint, if you just pulled up the record, it would look similar to how the Sixers have started their seasons in the past, which brings up this question, given the unique skill set of Ben Simmons and how much you really need to accommodate for him to make his impact really felt on your team. Is this a team that's actually better off without him, and what does that mean for his value to other teams and to the Sixers as well? So I want to talk about why they're still playing well even without him, and if they are actually better off without him. So the first thing is that when you watch them, they're just a more normal basketball team. Ben Simmons, as talented as he is, and I think that there are some people that are beginning to underrate him specifically in terms of his basketball ability, you do have to accommodate for him a lot. It's similar at times to the Russell Westbrook thing, although his usage is way higher, where you always have to think about the other four guys on the floor and how they fit alongside Ben Simmons, given his limitations as a spacer, given the fact that he doesn't really have a true position. Do you put him in the dunker spot? You have to think about the lineups that you put around him, probably more than almost any other player in the league that is not a big. You have to treat him like a big, but he's a guy that plays on the perimeter, and he plays on a team that features one of the best bigs in the league already in Joel Embiid. So it's a very odd combination where he's not someone you can just plug and play, and you really have to put a lot of thought into not only your lineups, but your rotations. At times, there might be guys that typically would play in your rotation, but they can't play with Simmons, and so they don't get as many minutes as you would hope to. It's difficult to build the best possible version of your team around a player like Simmons, specifically in this ecosystem that he exists in Philadelphia. We also have to account for Embiid. The fit has never been super smooth, no matter what anybody tries to tell you. It has never been something that feels normal or feels natural. And so when you take that Simmons piece away, you start to see a team that looks more like a modern basketball team, where the guards initiate a lot of stuff. There's more Joel Embiid, isolations and post-ups and things like that. There's more movement. And offensively, there's an argument to be made. They're one of the better offensive teams in the league. There's an argument to be made that they are actually a better offensive team without Ben Simmons, because it allows for guys like Furkan Korkmaz and Tyrese Maxey and Shake Milton, guys that are perimeter-oriented, three-point shooting, spacing players, to play more, which makes the spacing easier for Embiid, makes him more effective and efficient, and on a night-to-night basis, you can be effective almost regardless of who's on the floor. As long as you've got someone out there that can score like Embiid or any of the other perimeter guys that they have, you're going to be able to put a half-decent lineup out there. Whereas with Simmons, you always had to think about it. You always had to think about, well, Embiid and Simmons can't play together too much, so now we need to move around these minutes and these minutes. And during the regular season, when you've got guys missing time and some players playing one night and not playing the next, it can be not only difficult, but draining to continually figure out ways to make the Simmons thing work. And when you don't have to accommodate for that anymore, one, it's probably a bit freeing for the coaching staff to be able to try some new things. And two, it's just a little bit easier. And again, it looks much more normal and more natural. Guys that have been a big beneficiary of this are players like Tyrese Maxey, Shake Milton, guys that are perimeter creators that don't really have a place in the offense when Ben Simmons is out there, unless Simmons is being utilized as a screener, which they've done a better job over the last year to year and a half. But even then, it isn't the ideal role for those kinds of guys, and it's really kind of opened up their games. Now, it's not necessarily surprising that there's a bit of a positive impact to you offensively, but defensively, it's been a huge, huge issue for Philly. Granted, it doesn't help that Embiid has been missing the last couple of games, but they're not even close to the same level of defensive team they've been the last couple of years. One of the main reasons, of course, why they have been such a good defensive team for the last couple of seasons is because Ben Simmons is inarguably, when he's fully locked in and engaged, one of the best perimeter defenders in the entire league, potentially the best perimeter defender in the entire league, a guy that got Defensive Player of the Year consideration last year And of course, having Joel Embiid alongside him as well. It wasn't just the fact that they played with an incredible amount of size, whether it be when Horford was out there, whether it be just Simmons, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid. Not that Harris is a great defender, but having that length and activity level out there. But just two of the best defensive players in the league on the floor a good amount of the time is going to equal a very good defense. And that has been an issue for Philly so far. Granted, the record still looks good, but defensively, they have not been even remotely close to the same team. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, of course, Simmons he's an eraser. He is a matchup eraser. Oh, we're playing Damian Lillard tonight? Okay, Ben, go guard him. The next night we're playing Kevin Durant? Ben, go guard him. He can guard anybody you want him to. And when you take that piece away, suddenly you're looking at Tobias Harris guarding some of the better wings, in the Eastern Conference on a night-to-night basis. They don't really have, a ton of other guys, apart from guys like Matisse Thybulle that are, have their own spacing issues as well, to really go out there and match up defensively. But also, when you take Simmons' minutes away, those minutes are being largely soaked up by players that are not considered top-level defenders, who I mentioned earlier, Furkan Korkmaz, Tyrese Maxey, George Niang, not Tyrese Maxey, Shake Milton, and obviously there's going to be a decrease in your defensive efficiency when you're replacing Simmons' minutes, who's one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, with someone like Furkan Korkmaz, who I don't think is a stretch to say is not one of the better defensive players in the league. So obviously, that gets made worse when Joel Embiid is missing games, but I think that's also the last key point here is when Embiid is missing games, which has been a habit for him, fair otherwise, he has a habit of missing games. And when he doesn't play, the Sixers don't have a chance if Simmons also isn't playing. Guys like Seth Curry can do as much as they want, and Tyrese Maxey can try and be an offensive initiator, and Tobias Harris can go out there and score, but on a night-to-night basis, they're just not going to have enough talent to be able to compete with most teams in what's a pretty deep Eastern Conference, which they're going to be playing most nights, if both Embiid and Simmons aren't on the floor. And that was the main benefit, was whenever Embiid was out, you could say, okay, our team is different. We don't have the big guy anymore, but we also don't have to account for him, so just give Simmons the ball. We're going to play up and down in transition. We're going to play super fast. We're going to play the way that we did when Simmons kind of first broke out, when Embiid got hurt towards the end of the year a couple years ago, and Simmons looked fantastic. He looked like a guy that was going to be, the future of the league almost, as this bigger wing guard that was going to play up and down in transition. And you could just really focus everything around Simmons, and the teams that are potentially trading for Simmons are thinking about that blueprint and saying that's the guy that we want. But if Simmons isn't there, then you don't have anybody to make up for the games that Embiid misses. And as great as Joel Embiid is as a player, that has been something that Philly has tried to address for years, whether it be bringing in Al Horford to play the 5 when Embiid does miss games, or now bringing in someone like Andre Drummond, Dwight Howard in the past, having Simmons there in the first place. They've always needed to have some kind of plan for the, most of the time, 20, 25, 30 games that Embiid misses in any given season, and they don't have that answer anymore, and that is potentially the biggest negative of not having Simmons out there. So to answer the question, are the Sixers a better basketball team without Ben Simmons? No. However, I do think that this stretch of play shows a blueprint for how they can be a better team overall once they replace Simmons. So technically without him, but not without the value they would get in return for him via a trade. Does that phrasing make sense? Like, in a vacuum, are they better if they just don't play Ben Simmons? No. However, I do think there's a path for them to be a better team overall once they get value in exchange for Simmons to replace him with someone that potentially fits well with this roster, rather than, him just straight up not playing or him being on the floor in general. I do think that there's a path for them to be better there. I don't know, who that player would be, because it is a relatively strict, set of criteria here, because you want to hopefully make up for some of that defensive stuff because they really slipped on that end of the floor. So you want someone that can guard at least a little bit, but you also need that perimeter creator and playmaker that they've been lacking for years now. So I don't know who that player would be, but I do think there's a path here for Philly to improve their roster by trading Ben Simmons, which would be the reason to trade him in the first place, given his lack of leverage. But ultimately, that's going to be the answer to that question for me, is I don't think Philly's better without him. I think that maybe the chemistry is a bit better and things are a bit more natural at times, especially offensively, but overall the impact he has defensively is immense when he's locked in, and they're certainly missing that. But ultimately, it does show that it is probably time to move on and go and get somebody else and see what Joel Embiid looks like and the rest of this roster looks like without Ben Simmons out there. So yeah, that's going to be the end of today's video. Thank you guys very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Check out my socials down in the description below as well. With all those things said, hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.